All right, guys. So what I'm doing here is I'm just showing you these extra weird, I don't, not weird, weird to me, new to me. There's a better word, new colors that I've played with and experimented with, but never really understood. Like even raw umber and burnt umber. Like I never really know which one to use when. They're both just kind of a dark brown. I do know that one leans a little more green and one leans a little more reddish. So we'll be able to experiment. Asphaltum is another color that kind of I consider kind of like in those same umbery families, but it's really dark. And so we're gonna see what that does here in just a second. Then I've got brown. Okay, so I'm just gonna start over here. First color is Caroline red. I only have this little tiny tube, compared to these big beasts of tubes that I normally use. This was just a sample that I got, and I used it a couple of times, and I consider it more like a ketchup kind of a red. It wants to go towards more orangey pretty quick, at least in my experiments. So this will be interesting to see. So that's the Paroline red. It's very transparent, quite warm. So I'm curious to experiment with it. Then I've got raw umber, which again, I believe in my hypothesis is that it's going to be a little more on the green side than the burnt umber, which is basically just been burnt in a kiln or whatever, cooked. It is a little more reddish. Then I've got asphaltum, which my good friend Ramona Youngquist just swears by. She loves it. I've heard Amy Erickson talk about it. And so I do have a tube of it. I haven't used it much. So I'm curious to try that.
And Michael, how do you spell that, if you don't mind?
Asphaltum.
Thank you.
Yeah, brown peak. This is just such a strange color. That's this one here. And it does really strange and interesting things. I almost compare it to the transparent. Let's actually put out a little bit of that too so we can see it. The transparent earth red or transparent earth red by Gamblin. And then I have another color. I'll try to do this all very quickly. Hopefully you guys will find this interesting. And again, just showing all I have is a fast mat tube of that open right now. So I'm just going to put that right here beside these.
It's really interesting, Michael, really.
Yeah, and it'll be really fun to see. Let's zoom out. So that's my transparent earth red. Okay, so go back. So brown peak, which again is pretty new to me. In the little bit I've used, I kind of go, oh, it's very much like the earth red. When we put them side by side, they definitely kind of appear quite similar. The brown peak is a little bit warmer, redder, just by outward appearance. We'll see what happens when we do this experiment. I've got Payne's Gray, which I could put down a non-1980s color. This is the 1980 version of it, which I have liked because it is considered semi-transparent, and it is really just a very dark blue, and makes beautiful, cool grays. Jumping ahead of myself. This color is called gold ochre, which I've had a lot of fun with, and it is also considered transparent, which is interesting for the ochre colors because yellow ochre is, this one is semi-transparent. Some ochres that I've owned in the past are really quite opaque and have good coverage. But I really like the warmth and goldness that this puts into, especially like the tops of grasses and stuff like that, or the tops of trees that are getting the light. So I've been enjoying that color. So I put it down, and I've never done an experiment side by side. You can see it's a little yellower, and the typical yellow ochre is a little more reddish, and that's just comparatively, This little tiny spot here is another color that a company just gave to me to try out. And it's Terra Verde Antica, or Antique Green Earth. It has been kind of a disappointing color a little bit because it's really weak, meaning that if I mix any other color with it, it almost completely washes out. But it sure has a nice outward appearance to it. Here it is on my palette knife. You can see that, looks pretty dark. It's a very, very, very earthy green. So maybe if I could just figure out how to use it, it might be much more interesting. The next color under that, if one of you guys wants to quickly go online and see, is Daniel Smith's quinacridone red. Oh, sorry, quinacridone gold. Daniel Smith quinacridone gold. It was my understanding a couple years ago that this color was going to go extinct, meaning that oil painting manufacturers were not going to get it anymore. It is a very transparent, warm, beautiful color. I have found that I can mimic this color a lot by using a transparent earth red or an oxide red and a transparent, let's see if I have it out, transparent yellow oxide. So go ahead and squeeze that out too. So that's another color by Gamblin that I like a lot. It's a great glazing color if you don't want just, everything to end up looking like a sepia painting. This transparent earth yellow oxide is a great color. So going down the line, burnt the transparent earth red and transparent earth yellow, which is the only one I have not yet put on my palette. I'm gonna have to remember the order of all these.
Michael, they still make the quinacridone gold.
Oh, good. Okay, great. So they probably just found another supplier of whatever it is, or they maybe just changed the formulation. Who knows? But it's always interesting. Maybe it was just a sales ploy and I totally fell for it. Oh, it's gonna go rare, I better buy it. Or it's gonna be extinct, I better buy it. Let's bring over my paint thinner closer. And I'm going to now, I'll show you what I've been doing here. So I put 2 dabs of each one of the colors onto this piece of white paper with my black lines on there. Let's see if I can get it a little more centered. Great. Now look okay, guys?
Good.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and thin them out just by scrubbing them across, and that way we'll be able to see their transparency. And then on this side, I'm going to add a little bit of titanium white just to help to reveal what's happening within these colors, what temperatures they are, what colors they lean towards. And this, I think, will be really interesting. So let's just do our first one, Paroline Red. So I've got my big pile. I just put it on the palette knife. I'm just going to squeeze into part of it and just drag that color across so that it's getting thinner and thinner. The paper is pretty thirsty. So
That's just a matte board.
that's just the oil painting paper, but I could do it on anything. But yeah, what a nice warm red. Again, I don't know why, but it just kind of looks like Heinz ketchup to me, kind of a little bit leaning towards orange. All right, let me go ahead and I'm just going to put a dab of white on the over here over and over so that I'm not having to clean my brush so well.
So is that fast matte white?
It's mixed 50-50 with fast matte white, with titanium white and fast matte titanium white. So I just put 2 lines of it beside each other and then use my palette knife and just mix them together. And the truth is, Karen, the reason that that is on my palette is because I accidentally squeezed out the fast matte white this morning. But that's great because it will speed up my drawing time.
Well, it's interesting seeing the consistency too, how it's going on with your palette.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's really it makes it yeah, it has a really nice quality, almost mimics the effects of lead white. Lead white has this nice kind of stringiness to it and really keeps its form. If you guys know Velasquez and his work with his portraits and stuff, they're just really just awesome.
Yes.
A lot of that is, at least in my learning, has been accredited to his use of lead whites, which just are different than our new whites. But there is something called flake white replacement that supposedly is pretty close. All right, so now I'm just going to do that same thing. I'm just going to take this Paraline red across, and then I'm going to pick up some white and bring that back across over it.
Flake white is the most transparent, is that right? Or is it zinc white?
I believe zinc white, but I'm not positive. I just stayed with titanium. I haven't done much experimenting. I do own a transparent white, which I use very rarely. All right, so you can really see the difference of, you know, just letting it go transparent by scrubbing it in and letting the paint get thinner versus adding white to it to make it lighter. So that's, I always love to see that, you know, sometimes the white of the color really changes it. It still stays quite warm. Like if I wanted a warm pink, that's probably the color I might use, because white, you know, cools colors, not only just lightens them, but it also cools them down. And this red in this area has really kept a nice warmth to it. If I did a little spot of quinacridone pink or a quinacridone red mixed with white, it'd be an interesting comparison side by side. Like I should do this with all my reds, all my yellows, all my blues, you know, all these different charts I could make. Anyways, next color, raw umber, which is very opaque, has great coverage. I mean, look at that. I'm scrubbing it, and you can still not see that black line. Barely can see it there. Great coverage. So very opaque color. You can start to see the line. Let's grab it and do the same thing over here. Looks like I should be adding a little paint thinner because this paper really sucks up the oil and the paint becomes really hard to move as I get towards the white. Bring that white back across. Start picking up that paint. So very interesting gray that it makes. Take a little more. But isn't that different? So interesting with just the transparency by scrubbing it over the white or the, you know, the background versus adding white to it. Really stays opaque, 100% opaque. I cannot see the black line at all through over here. So just note to self, umbers so far have great covering power. This is the burnt umber. This is the color I use the most. It's a great underpainting color. It's great for doing the wiping away and stuff if I want it to be more dense versus using the transparent earth red, which is so transparent. Because it also has the warmth, but its other benefit, you guys, with a burnt umber is that it dries pretty much the fastest of any oil paint, as far as I can tell. And I think it's something with the cooking, you know, of it. And I mean, look at that coverage. I cannot see the line hardly at all. In fact, I'm going to take a paper towel to the end of it and wipe it away a little more just to see. There, you can barely see the line. I'm going to do the same thing with the raw umber. There we go. So you can really see it is, I was correct, that the raw umber is greener than the burnt umber. Hopefully you guys can see that on there. Let me turn this a tiny bit more towards the light. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
Change the angle of the camera a little bit too. All right, we're still in. All right, let's check our raw umber with the white. Picking up some white over here and moving back in. Definitely warmer than the raw umber. So yeah, that's nice to figure, finally have proof of what I thought to be correct. My hypothesis is correct. Now let's go to the asphaltum. Strange name. Wonder why it's named asphaltum. Very dark. It does seem to be a little more transparent, even though you guys probably can't see that on the monitor. Than the umber colors. It does get warm as it gets thinner. So that's interesting. I don't know if you guys can see kind of a little bit of a red around it. Maybe I'll wipe off the end again with my paper towel and see if we can see the warmth. There is a redness to it for sure. So it's a little bit darker in its native color than the burnt umber, but it seems to, when it gets thin, to have the same effect and almost the same color as the burnt umber. Let's do that again with the white. Let's see if it looks the same as the burnt umber above it. Because then I would just have to decide, if they both are so similar, which one do I prefer? Oh, it's definitely browner. That's interesting. It's warmer than I actually thought it was.
Be interesting to see how it mixes with other colors compared to the burnt umber.
Yeah, that's always the other thing. Yeah, it's because of their chemical makeup. Sometimes they just mix differently. Like Indian yellow mixes with different colors differently than orange would or a yellow. So you kind of got to experiment and just see, or you could do charts.
Michael, if you wanted to make the burnt umber look like the asphaltum, when it was mixed with white, would you just add a little bit of red though?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, there's not a huge separation. It definitely is a little warmer, a gray. It definitely, yeah, you can see it on the monitor. It's definitely browner and a little warmer. The burnt umber definitely goes towards a gray, but not as much as the raw umber. So yeah, interesting. I don't think, because a lot of these colors are close, I don't, I'm not like one of those guys that needs to have every color because they have slight differences. I usually would just pick, I would pick one of these three colors on my palette at a time. I rarely would have all three. And I kind of feel like burnt umber is because it is more in the middle. I might use that because I think I could make burnt umber go towards raw umber with a touch of blue maybe. And I think, like you said, I think I could make it go towards, anyways. All right, what's our next color is brown pink. This one I'm excited about. I already know it's quite transparent. But it can be quite dark. Wipe off that end again. Also goes kind of towards, actually it goes much more orangey than the orange brown than the red I have above. I'm gonna do the same here with the white. Again, hopefully this isn't too boring, you guys doing so many different colors, but this is a great way to, again, experiment. We're looking at its temperature. We're looking at its opacity or coverage ability or lack thereof, transparency.
Not boring, Michael, not boring.
It's sure fun for me.
No.
But
Is the asphaltum also gambling?
every tube I have out here so far is gambling. I'll tell you, I have two colors that are not. That was the Daniel Smith quinacridone gold, which is not extinct, those little liars. And then the other one is this weird, it's by, I don't even know the name of this company. My tube is all MAIMERO. It's an Italian company.
Nightmare.
Anybody speak Italian or know what that, how it's pronounced that? All right, cleaning my brush. We're gonna get down to Payne's Gray, transparent Payne's Gray, which is the 1980s. You know, and I have, like I said, I have 3 or 4 different tubes of Payne's Gray, both by different companies and different qualities. And I do know one of my tubes of Payne Gray is very green, which is interesting. I don't use it very often, but I should probably try experimenting with it. Anyway, Payne's Gray, let's test it. It's gonna be really dark, so it'll be hard to see the line through it. So I'll try to get it to go really thin. Wipe that away at the end. Then wiping away is good for me because I do a lot of wiping away, so I can kind of see. Yeah, you can see the line through there at the end. Now we're going to see what color it goes to when it's got the white in there. My prediction is that it will go pretty blue-gray. And I was right. What a gorgeous blue-gray though, right?
Yes.
All right, next we've got gold ochre.
So,
Again,
Michael, all these colors are just right out of the tube, right? There's no medium?
every one of them's out of the tube, and then I'm mixing them with only white. And that again is just kind of to reveal their color a little more to me. Because when they're really dark, it's really hard to actually even see what colors they are. So yes, it's pretty transparent. It gets, you know, I can see the line underneath pretty quickly. Very nice, warm, you know, compared to the Indian yellow, kind of a dirtier yellow, just like you would expect from a ochre. Get it with the white. Oh, glorious. Love it. There's where the real warm gold kind of shows through, makes it really nice, not pure yellow. Still so transparent, even with the white added in. I can still see the line through it. So that is a very transparent color. All right, normal yellow ochre. I don't know, I'm beating up on an actual good brush here. Let's get a lesser brush or a brush that's been already beat up. All right, normal yellow ochre. And this tube says that it is a semi-transparent. And you can see the difference between a full transparent on top of it and a semi-transparent, how the line doesn't reveal itself till about the midway point. Wipe that away.
It's like a pretty stiff texture paint.
No, that's my very stiff brush that I chose.
Mm.
Sorry about that. Yeah. It is thicker though. Yes, it definitely does want to keep its shape more than. And then the other thing is, you know, when I'm analyzing these colors after I've done this, I can begin to say, you know what, can I just make that color out of my other tubes that I always have on my palette? You know, is it actually worth having another color on my palette, or is it worth buying more tubes of paint that might just sit in my drawer.
What's interesting about that gold ochre is, at least from where through the camera, it's very reddish in as it gets more transparent, and it gets more green as it's white is added. Is that what people see? More lemony?
More lemony, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a nice color for sure.
It's an interesting transition when you add white.
That's a nice color.
They're whatever the antique weird. I gotta stop saying that. Thank you for the free paint. Now let's test it. Quite transparent. The line reveals itself very quickly.
Mhm. Oh, look at that.
Beautiful, kind of, army green.
That's not.
I put it on even thicker and it's still super transparent. Wipe off the end and see what we get left with. The nice thing about that paper is it does suck up that paint, and so we get the reveal of what it would look like wiped away. And let's see what it looks like with white, because I bet you a lot of times over here, it's hard to actually see the color on the monitor, isn't it? Until I get the white into it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so weak. It's crazy. It doesn't even hardly stain or change the white.
Wow.
It is a weak color.
White's wiping.
Yeah, it just gets wiped out by the white. That is interesting. I'll come back in with a little more and see if I can shift the color. Yeah. Yeah, sorry to the manufacturer of this. I just wouldn't buy this because it's just, I like transparent colors, but it's too weak. It just disappears. There's a couple purples that do the same thing. They're beautiful colors, but when you mix them with anything, they just disappear. You feel like you have to use the whole tube of it to get any kind of effect. And oftentimes these interesting, odd colors are very expensive. All right, 2, maybe 3 more. I did grab a Venetian red, which is just a beautiful color and has good coverage. All right, now where are we at? We are at the quinacridone gold. Beautiful, very transparent. Love this color. Now that I know it's not extinct, I won't be scared to use it. But very, very transparent. Picking up the white.
That's interesting.
It turns yellow with white. That is weird. You see that? How it just turns from brown to
Yeah.
to yellow.
Yeah, yeah.
Colors are so weird. What they can do. Black magic in this tube of paint. Or maybe it's good magic, depending on your use of it.
Good.
Yeah, that's wild. What a crazy color spread. That looks like I used 3 different tubes of paint right there. Interesting.
Yeah. Wow.
I could really see that being great on like into summer grasses and things like that. I think that could be really fun because you could use all 3 of those different colors that are appearing there. Okay, transparent yellow oxide. So a lot of times I will use the transparent earth red and the transparent yellow oxide in conjunction with each other. They make a really nice, if you want to do a very transparent glazing or transparent painting, underpainting or whatever. It's a great color. Fairly inexpensive.
I'm sorry. The color you're using now is called what?
Transparent yellow oxide.
Oh, thanks.
Very transparent, just like the colors above it. Man, it's so transparent that as soon as I touch it, it disappears on the. Yeah, you can see through the whole line. You can see through the whole line of the quinacridone gold as well. Let's see what happens when we mix it with white.
You know, it's funny, in some brands of paint, the transparent oxide colors are really expensive, but when you see their strength, it almost seems like they should be less expensive because they don't have coverage.
Yeah, some of my most expensive tubes are so weak. I have a purple in here somewhere that's like $125 for just a little tube of it. Yeah. Yeah, this is like $125, $150 for this one.
Wow.
And it's cobalt.
Yikes.
black.
You better put that in the safe.
Yeah. At least I think this is the one. I can't even get the lid off it.
Was that a European purchase?
Yeah, it's Italy. Yeah, I really can't get the tube off. I was gonna test it on it. All right. Did I do transparent earth red? No, I didn't. So we're gonna do transparent earth red and Venetian. So I'll put the transparent earth red next to that yellow because I use them together quite a bit. I actually think of them as being relatives, but I don't even know if that's true. Well, they are because they're both oxides.
Don't forget to write on the back of the stuff which color you used.
No, maybe I'll come with a
Or
pencil
can,
underneath them after they're dry.
Yeah.
How do I remember? What was the other color I was gonna do? Venetian red. And then we'll be done. And then we'll look at these and decide what colors do we actually want to use? Or do I want to just try them all? I don't know. Might look a little crazy. Venetian red, so glorious. The color of awesome bricks. Old-fashioned bricks. All right. Transparent earth red first. Clean a brush. Yeah, if one of you guys would do me a favor and write this order down and then in the comments, that way I can copy it and I won't have to stop and write these all down because I had them all organized, but of course they're getting crazy on my palette. So if somebody is willing to do that, I will read them off again real quickly. One of my very favorite guest colors, the color that is on my palette the most often as a guest. Used to be Indian yellow was my most common guest color, but it was such a common color on my palette that it actually replaced cadmium yellow medium. I just found that the Indian yellow plus cadmium yellow light or plus any of the others made a cadmium yellow medium, and I loved its Indian yellow. So Indian yellow is now part of the family. And I think that this transparent earth red is almost part of the family. Oops, I need white. Because it's almost always on my palette. Touching the white. And then back we go. Lovely.
Mm.
I love it in its transparent color, and I love it in its more opaque mixed with the white. All right. I once heard Amy Erickson, who spells her name A-I-M-E-E, Erickson. You should look at her paintings. They're fantastic. She just came out with a book.
Yeah.
Friend of mine, and she was once asked in an interview if she could only have one color for the rest of her life, which one would it be? And she said that she would choose Venetian red.
Hmm.
Which I thought was very strange. Maybe it was a palette. Maybe she was making a palette that she'd have to have for the rest of her life, but she wanted red on it. And I thought that was very interesting. Look at how consistent that is. I mean, it almost doesn't change. It does get a little more transparent, but like the color doesn't change. Same with the yellow ochre. Whereas some of these really shift a lot as they get, you know, thinner. Let's see if I wipe it away. There we go. It gets a little more pinkish. That's sure nice though. Let's do towards the white. So Venetian red, even this 1980s one that I have, which are typically more transparent again because more fillers, more whatever they're putting in it, oil, is still got great coverage. Getting to the white. I've done some really nice paintings where I used only burnt umber, the Payne's gray, and the yellow, gold yellow ochre, or the gold
Gold ochre.
and white. So those three colors make a really beautiful. And I did that experiment. I did the first painting just because I just happened to buy all three of those colors at the same time and went out painting right away. And I loved the effects. So really interesting, very earthy, very muted. Okay, so if it's somebody willing to write for me really quickly so I can actually remember what colors I've got here before I move them out of the way to actually start painting.
It's in there. I think it's in the chat.
It already is.
I think so. Karen?
Yeah, I think I got them all.
All right, let's go through it real quick here. All right, we've got
The first one is Peroline.
Yeah, I said Caroline.
What's the next one?
Raw umber,
Perfect.
burnt umber,
That's fine.
asphaltum,
Watch your mouth.
asphaltum, say brown pink, Payne's gray, gold ochre, yellow ochre, antique green earth, quinacridone gold, transparent yellow oxide, transparent earth red, and Venetian red.
Woo! Nailed it.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, even like for like, you know, an interior designer, like these would be really useful, interesting information. Or when I'm talking to clients, like, you know, I'm, you know, you don't want to pretend that people are buying your paintings or make, you know, when you're doing commissions, that they're like, well, I need it to match my couch and, you know, this and that, but they do, and that's fine. I want them to be happy and I want to make beautiful paintings. So by doing this, I can say, you know, is your couch crazy earthy green or more gold? And, you know, do you like it more with the white in it, or do you like it more with just the warm transparent? So anyways, really fun. Thank you for writing that list down. During the break, I will copy and paste that onto a piece of onto something so that I can preserve it. And with that, we are going to take one more 3-minute or so break so I can clean up my crazy palette. Made quite the mess there, and we will start painting. Everybody good?
Yep.
And that way we'll stop and I'll have this one as a separate video.